it's the Zoom is basically the only video, right?
Right.
Okay. So hold on.
Looks like we are Periscope. We are now live.
I'm eating chips. I didn't know we were live.
Yep. YouTube looks like it's online. Facebook, let me knock out of that Facebook. Hoodoo Bible Study, we're live. And I always have a devil of a time connecting my Instagram. Let me see if I can try it again here. Hello, everybody. As y'all are coming in, I need to pull up the chat in just a second here, but we're doing Hoodoo Help Desk with Moses. The prophets are in. So we'll be with you guys in just a moment. Make sure you chat with everybody. Tell everybody where you're from, especially if you represent the zodiac signs. Y'all know how we do. Let me hear your cosmic game. Okay. Y'all know hashtag Team Taurus all day, but we've got Team Virgo with us today also.
Of course. Team Virgo has almost analyzed this, successfully analyzed what we got going on here too. That's, I think, it. That's Zoom. Cool. All right, so I should be able to get us up on, cool, this will work. I should be able to get us up on my Instagram as well, momentarily.
Oh, excuse me.
And we pin you as well. Is your video going to be on, Doc?
It should be on now.
Not on now.
It's not? Okay, let me. My apologies. I thought I was on.
Oh, that's not a problem, Doctor. There you go. I see that VCam thing coming on up. All right. I got the wrong thing going here. Hold on one sec. Need to add source. There we go. I still got your VCam screen, but it's something.
Let me see if I stop video. I set it back up again to be able to refresh it.
A little bit of a lag here, but I think we'll be okay. I'm gonna set up my stream here. Okay, custom RMTP yellow duck. Here we go.
Oh my goodness, I forgot my password.
Uh-oh. Nope, I messed that up.
All right, well, let me while we're doing this, let me at least see if I can take a look at the chat.
All right, that's some progress. I wasn't set up to stream. I had all kinds of programs running in the background. I got to turn those down.
Same here. Looks like we've got close every tab to the right. 4, 7. So we've got about 10 views, people viewing.
Cool.
So let me see if I can get the chat pulled up here, and then we'll be really good to go.
Playing with resolution here to make sure we get it good for Instagram. You know, we got so many different formats to work with here. All right, this should get me yellow deck.
You're gonna loosen it. Your mushroom mice post is funny.
Okay, it was funny. You like that? It's true. Though.
That's what makes it even more funny. I think you're absolutely honest.
You know, yeah. I was like, and people think that it had to do with me being humane. That is not. That is not the situation. Trying to do experiments on random mice is not for me.
All right, I see Purple Lover 77 on YouTube. We're just getting to the chat. Hello,
And I'm going to check out.
everyone.
We should be live. We should be live on Instagram too. If I'm not mistaken. I don't know if there's any way to tell, but let's.
I don't see you live on.
Well, that's probably the best way to tell. It's for you to look. You don't see me live, you said?
Nope.
All right. Well, then Yellow Duck's not working.
Yes, and yes. You guys let us know there in the chat if you're able to see us okay, if our feed is coming through.
All right,
good
let's
and
try this
clear,
again.
if you
I
can
think this
hear
will be
us. You can see Moses and myself. Let me know what you are getting on your end of things.
All right, now am I live, Doc?
Nope. Okay. They said they see Moses only. Is my camera working, Moses?
No, it's just your icon.
It's okay. Let me. Okay, let's see if this will do it.
Sorry, you guys caught me at snack time. I'm just like between.
I know how that is.
The
I'm
temple
getting
and
some
then
munchies on the way now. Okay,
yeah,
thank you, Miss Cookie. Let me know if you guys can see me now. Moses, can you see me?
I think so. Hold on. Yes, I can.
Okay, you can see me. Okay, good and good. Great.
I'm
and
plugging back
great
into
to
Yellow Duck,
see
so it
you.
should be able to go live on my IG shortly here. Cool. Stream keys, what I got to change. Stream.
Okay, everybody can see me. Okay, good and good. So,
Am I
was
live on
invisible
IG?
over there.
Am I live on Instagram, Doc? You seen that?
Let's see.
I just restarted Yellow Duck, so it should be live.
Okay, it's saying Hoodoo Moses live. Let's see.
Okay.
But it's not picking up any feed. It's just.
Well, let me see if I can give it the feed because I'm not feeding it quite now. Okay, now it should be feeding it.
All right, let me refresh.
How's it looking now?
Still a black screen.
God damn. All right.
What are you feeding to it?
I'm trying to go through Yellow Duck, but you know what? Let's just do this. Let's stop worrying about my Instagram today.
Okay.
And then I can dig into Yellow Duck more.
They should, at this point, they should be following us on at least 2 platforms.
Right? Now. Yeah. If you know that,
yeah, they're lost. They're lost. Wow. So it is Hoodoo Help Desk again. We kind of took like a 2-week hiatus because the holidays and things like that were going on. You know, life happens, and we were taking some of our own help, right? So, Moses,
Doc,
are you pumped and primed? Last night, wow! So we got to do a recap. Okay, we got a lot to cover.
I was not. We're gonna have to start going earlier on this stuff because it's like the movies are getting longer and the conversations are getting longer and everything's getting longer.
Everything's getting longer. It's like we're experiencing our own daylight savings. Is what's going on. It's finally catching up with us. So let me just, for those of you who may be new to my channel or even to Hoodoo Help Desk. All right. What is Hoodoo Help Desk? So Hoodoo Help Desk, you know, people from around the world come together, tell us about their issues with love or career protection, all of these life's conditions that defy mundane practical solutions. So, you know, we're here to prescribe you very effective, very powerful rituals. We say tips, tricks, and techniques about the sticks, the stones, the roots, and the bones, you know, that concern hoodoo. We want to help you get your hoodoo to do what it do. Okay. Just be mindful of, you know, we got a few rules. Number one, we're not going to give any commentary on any other workers or their products or their services.
That's just ask us right now and right here, right? We do that in general, right?
Yeah, we do that in
we just do that on my channel. Okay.
Right, exactly. We don't do that here. Well, I should say, what I mean by that is, don't come asking us about someone's product that you bought and want to know, if it's working or not. That's what I mean. Oh, yeah. Oh, we'll definitely tell people by their name. No, please don't misunderstand. Right. Oh, yeah, we'll call them out, but don't ask us about some other doctor's medicine they gave you. Number two, we aren't going to be giving any proprietary recipes or any formulas. You need to join our congregation for stuff like that. Number three is, if it requires a divination, we're going to ask you to, just get a consultation from one of us. And then lastly, again, we're not going to be breaking any oaths to give you guys mysteries or secrets that, we can't give, obviously.
So basically, if it's something where you're like, I feel like I'm close, is it this or this? That's a great question for us. But if it's, I don't know what's going on, not a great question.
Right.
Now, Doc, I'm hearing all these bings and boops and plings, and I assume those are comments or something going on, but I can't see them. So I assume you can.
That's me. That's my Zoom going off. That's my assistant texting me some updates on. Let me turn that off.
All right. So now, can you see the cross stream comments right now? Because I can't see anything.
Yes. Let me. Where is the link for If I can see the link.
All right, let's see. You sent that over on Zoom. Okay. Now, man, I have updates even since yesterday. We were just live together yesterday.
They're coming in so fast.
Let's see what I did. I have my St. Michael anointing oil is done. It is made, and that was such an oil. Very pleased with that, and it's it's been extracted, double extracted, filtered, post-processed. It's as pure. It's gorgeous. And so today I started working on my Santa Muerte oil to go kind of along with that. But in the middle, I cleaned the whole temple and winterproofed it, which felt.
You were putting in the installation.
Yeah, it's really nice. So it's just sheets of lamb's wool, which I don't know why I even had hesitations about. It's so. Feels so right in there, certainly my ancestors, it says in the scripture that you make a curtain out of wool. And, it's like, certainly my ancestors had temples with woolen walls. It's nice and cozy in there. Does not have a smell. It's hypoallergenic. But one of the things I like is that already the wool is getting dressed. Just from me moving around the space and shifting the herbs around. And I've got this on my hand and that. The wool's starting to get dressed and be like a living part of the temple. And I had this vision, and this is not an invitation because I don't have enough wool for this to happen quite yet, but I had this vision of when people come to the temple, them being able to take a piece of wool anointed with oil with them.
Like the old time prayer cloths.
Mm-hmm. And now I have a piece of wool or cotton from some church in Syria, from the Chapel of St. Charbel. Mm-hmm. So I've had this. It's just like what's the easier way to distribute oil than on something, So we got them and now it's going to be infused with so much, all the smoke in the temple, everything in the temple. So
everything.
Yeah. So
the effervescence.
I'm pleasantly surprised with how easy it is to put up, how warm it's staying in there. It was 72 degrees in there when I was in there earlier. And it's about 40 outside. I have a little heater in there now too, but it's working great. I got lights, electric lighting, came into the 20th century. All right, they're already asking questions in the chat, Doc.
They're already asking questions. Well, first of all, of course, the epic question right now is about these mice you got going on. Are they blind mice? Are they deaf mice? What kind of...
They must be deaf because I've been yelling at them and they're still coming back. And they must be blind because they're not going to the kitchen. They're just coming to my study. Or maybe they're not blind and they're looking for the books.
They heard about Terrafilm. They said he's got.
I swear, I looked down last night, and there was one just like sitting on. Maybe he did get in the mushroom because he was just sitting in the middle. They're not supposed to be in the middle of the floor. They're supposed to stay along the edges. He was just right there next to my book bag, looking up at me, and I was like, "What are you doing?" You're not allowed to. This is very presumptuous, very bold little rodents. So, I was wondering what I was going to do with these mice once I caught them. I'll catch them tomorrow once the traps come. But, I got all kinds of hawk medicine and owl medicine, and they sure eat mice.
Oh, yes. So, yes and yes.
I see you saying it's the chips, but I don't usually eat the chips in here. And these are bean chips, which hopefully the mice don't like. But, the mice will be hopefully no longer an issue. More that was a joke because I've been doing an experiment to see if they'll eat the mushrooms. They won't eat the mushrooms, so they'll get trapped. All right, what else we got?
Well, Sacred Scripture Circle, we're still screaming from the mountaintop. If you've not seen it, okay.
Oh yeah, it's still there on the
literally, we've been going 30 weeks, Sacred Scripture Circle, all to get to this week. It really hadn't started till this week. Mm-hmm. Everything else was a prelude, a precursor, a foreshadowing, if you will.
And I have to add more to this to give it context. I haven't said it. I've thought it, but I haven't said it to anyone. It has not been uncommon for people to ask, especially me, questions about the influence of Judaic practices on hoodoo. And I never answer it straight because I've been waiting to this week's Sacred Scripture Circle to go, oh, this is way older than you think it is. This overlap is way. This happened in the prequel. It didn't just happen here. It's not Jews in America. No. That's you got to twist it. If you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, you got to watch the Sacred Scripture Circle.
We've got 21 people watching us, and I want to say to all of you, hey, whatever you're doing right now, like, follow, share, and subscribe. 21 of you. So that was Sacred Scripture Circle. 6 hours of meaty, dense. Almost break your jaw.
We got 19 verses into the chapter, and then we didn't even finish the whole chapter. One verse for 4 hours.
So that means we still have to pick up on part 2 next Monday.
Yes.
And this is like our second part 2 we've had to do since we started Hoodoo. Sacred Scripture Circle. So you want to check it out, all right? Sit down with a pen and pad and a spoon and a fork because the stuff is meaty. It's good stuff.
And I think the thing to emphasize is like your current knowledge or background or even stance on the Bible and Scripture doesn't really matter. It's still good stuff to watch because we're talking about stuff. You could be, as I said in the thing, you could be an atheist Satanist, and there's still good stuff in there for you.
Yes.
I recommend it.
The second thing was last night, wow and wow. It was like a triple whammy last night.
Yeah.
Because we broke out the actual curriculum, which we'll talk about just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
We had our movie screening, and then we had our after discussion.
What a great movie.
What a great movie, right?
As an adult, but that's going to be in the rotation now. I could watch that again. That was fucking hilarious.
It was good. I was like, I feel like I should have had another viewing party in the middle of a viewing party. It was really good. Yeah. Because I was here screaming to myself, but I was hollering in here for like the past 30 minutes, watching that movie. That movie was funny. And by the way, those who missed it, we were watching. If you're just new to all of this, okay, Wednesday nights is one of our community nights that we do our Hoodoo movie screening. So we all come together as a community. Everybody's invited. It's free of charge. Bring your popcorn and your wine and whatever. Hang out with us for a few hours. Watch a movie together. And then afterwards, we have a discussion about the movie, right? Its implications.
To this point, this isn't going to be able to last forever. But to this point, they've all been very Hoodoo movies. Hoodoo's been either a major plot point or theme point. Thematic or setting point in every single one of these movies. So at some point, we'll probably end up doing other movies too. But for now, this is what we got.
It was really good. So, we've done Princess and the Frog. We've done Spell. We've done Skeleton Key. What else have we done so far? We did Eve's Bayou. And this week, of course, was Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, an old classic. And like we said, that's because I almost had to 4 a.m. I had to get out of that, go to prayer, but it was good nonetheless. Because I mean, if you weren't there, you weren't there. But one of the major topics we discussed was about white people and other ethnic groups' place in the scheme of hoodoo. We talked about what justified work really looks like, what is justice versus vengeance or whatever. We talked about, just classism, society, the sport and life, as it were, that coined term, and all of the intermeshings of that in a hoodoo context. I thought it was great. Because what I loved about these movies, Moses, and I just want to get your opinion, is that each of these movies highlight another part of the prism of hoodoo's expression.
That's why I love it's such a good lead up to the academy. Because it, as you said, you see all these facets to it. You see all the in no two movies does anyone's hoodoo look the same, and yet all of it's clearly hoodoo. And there's regional differences, and there's family differences, and there's time differences in some of these movies too, right? But how you start to see, once you've seen all the edges of it, you can deduce what is hoodoo, what's in the middle, what do they all have in common. You start to feel. That's what I think it's been a really effective way. That's what we talked about is immersion, right? It's been this immersion thing.
And you guys go ahead and put your questions in the chat if you have any.
I see some if we scroll back from before.
Okay.
Hold on. Oh, I can't
help there's questions.
I don't know if I can scroll back. There's one question about hi, John. There was another question. Those of you who put those questions up, please pop them back in because they've scrolled out because we had to talk about my mice.
And what we'll do is we'll kind of go back and forth with questions and talking about the Hoodoo Academy in our curriculum, because we just launched last night was the first preview anybody got out of 6 eyes, mine, yours, and my assistant's, of, 9 eyes, I guess you would say technically, but of our curriculum. So we've been asked, some people might have been on the fence. And one of the questions I want to ask you guys, while y'all asking us questions, let me return the favor and ask you a question. And be very, be honest, it's very open. Why haven't you signed up for the Hoodoo Academy? We really want to know. No judgment call. We want to know so we can better serve and assist.
Yeah, our job is to make sure that you have every bit of information, every resource, and every reason to sign up. So if there's a reason that we haven't figured out, we want to know that so we can take care of that.
I'm wondering, Moses, can you do the little slideshow thing?
Yeah, I can do the slideshow thing. Yes, sir. Give me a moment to prepare it. Did you like that slideshow?
Oh, wow. So I think that's Sonia G asks, wow, that's right. There's a module 11 question. I wonder if she signed up for
well, that could go with the candle modules, but that would go in the scripture module for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Witch's needle, man, that would go in the spiritology module and the plants module, I'd say.
So we're looking at module 3. We're looking at module 14.
All right, so now I only have the old images up, Doc. So
that's cool. That's cool.
I haven't redone them yet, but let's hear them. Now, can we do a show of hands? Who has no idea what we're talking about when we're talking about Hoodoo Academy? And then on the flip side, who's heard of it but was not there last night and didn't see this whole rundown? That would help me know kind of if it's a recap for everyone. We can go more in detail. If it's new to people, obviously we want to make sure we cover all the bases.
Tanya did ask about prayer and the railroad spike, so that's module 3 and module 16, I think. Yeah.
Is that coming up on screen, Doc?
Yes, I'm seeing it. I want to know if everybody else is able to see what I'm seeing.
Let me pull up that chat too, because I've closed that. Oh, actually, I can't look at the chat or it's going to mess up the screen share for everyone else. So you're going to have to be my eyes out there, Doc.
Look, I'm about to drop into Okay, yes, they can see. Excellent. They can see, yeah.
And how'd that little poll I put out there, that survey I requested come through? How many folks have no idea what Hoodoo Academy is?
Yeah. Does anybody here know what Hoodoo Academy is? Have you heard of it? What the heck are we talking about?
Anyone want to guess what we're looking at in the picture either?
Okay. Veggie Woman says she's heard of that, but was not there last night. Yaxia said, yes, she's heard of it. Purple Lumber said, yes, they've heard of it. Zen Golden Child said, yes, they heard of it. Sugar said, my financial situation is stopping me. I'm able to pay weekly.
Well, let's cover this. We'll get to that. You know.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Ronnie said heard but has not seen it has heard of it, haven't seen it.
Well, then let's run through it. But it's enough people that have heard it but weren't there last night.
Right.
And for those who are kind of just getting in the picture here, Hoodoo Academy is a 2-month program. Doc and I are putting it out beginning January 6th. It ends the end of February. We have 2 weekly modules, over 50 hours of classes from us. We're about to show you what these modules are. Each module is about 3 hours. And we also have, in addition to these modules, guest speakers, other elders, working professionals, and keepers of traditions who are coming in, not only supplementing, augmenting, and fleshing out what we're talking about, but giving you some more context. What I can tell you is this. In those 2 months, you will learn more about the theory, the practice, and the lifestyle of Hoodoo than you've learned to date, unless you grew up in it. I feel very confident making that guarantee. I don't care what online courses you've taken. I don't care what Instagram or YouTube channels you're following. This is the whole thing. I found myself reflecting last night before we went live, Doc, and I haven't caught up with you personally on this. Mm-hmm. I found myself, how I got myself out of my slow, how I maybe it was 2 nights ago then, how I kind of got my rhythm back, was I just went back through my year on Instagram because I have a photo journal of what I was doing when. So I said, let me reflect on 2020 and where I felt like I hit friction, etc. You know, so as I was going through the year, though, it caused me to I went a little further back as I was looking for pictures for this thing, and it just caused me to recollect on our conversations over the years, the ones that I probably couldn't recall the details of, but how literally every day for years we have called each other excited about some discovery or some innovation or some clarification or some application, sometimes professionally, sometimes personally. And that's the shit that we'll talk about for hours and certainly is never making it on Instagram or YouTube. And this is the venue to transmit the essence of that. So we begin with module 1, Hoodoo history. Look, if you don't know, you can't tell where you're going if you don't know where you came from. You don't know the strength of a tree until you know the depth of its roots. I can go with a million metaphors, but the main point is, how are you going to know what you're doing if you don't know who did it before you and how they did it? You can save yourself so much time and trouble. Not only do you take inspiration in how to approach things from looking how masters before you did it, but you triangulate yourself, stay faithful to what you're doing. And so Hoodoo history begins in Africa before the Middle Passage, brings it across through slavery era Hoodoo, plantation era Hoodoo, Reconstruction, and onwards. We see the migration to the big cities eventually, and then we eventually come to the mail order Hoodoo, and really the drugstore Hoodoo and that sort of thing that most people think of when they look out there on the internet and Google Hoodoo. We're taking it back before then because, again, that lacks context. And the difficult thing about it, I'm not going to get too deep into the specifics here, but the difficult thing about it is if you think that Hoodoo is supposed to look like some, fluffy white powder in a foil package with a cartoon picture on it, it's not your fault you're getting fooled, but you're not getting Hoodoo. That is it's the copy of the copy of the copy of the copy of the copy. Yeah, it's roughly the same shape kind of as Hoodoo, but you're missing all the details. Knowing that history is not only going to make you a better consumer, a better practitioner, a better Hoodoo. And I mean, I guess here's the fine point I want to say that I've been thinking about and hesitating about saying for a few days. what I hear and what I see out there is not so. I feel a few years ago, people had this mindset of, well, hoodoo is something I want to add to my toolkit. I want to add to my arsenal. I'm a spiritual practitioner, and hoodoo is just something I want to pick and choose from. And that was
all that eclecticism.
Yes, and a very, very, every eclectic wants to dabble in hoodoo, and that was problematic. And I feel like, honestly, as a community, we did really well in expressing that and addressing it and influencing the tide. I mean, I certainly blocked and unfollowed a lot of people, so I don't have to see it. I'm sure it's still out there, but at least from what I see, right? Now, where I see things developing and where I feel like we're really feeding with the academy is now people say, no, I don't want to add hoodoo to what I'm doing. I want to add myself to hoodoo. I want to be part of this tradition. I think for the longest time, you had people saying like, oh, I'm interested in hoodoo because there's no, quote unquote, no initiation.
Oh, goodness, not that crap.
And now you have people almost being like, but is there really an initiation I could get or something, please? It's
right.
You know what I mean? Like that difference. And so that begins with history, right? Initiation, knowing who you are, knowing what your name is, all that begins with history. We're going to talk about ancestry very soon, but this is your hoodoo ancestry. You hear Doc and I talk about these workers, Dr. John, Dr. Buzzard. These are not just names with no reference. These are not just historical facts. These are touchstones in a tradition, and ways of practice and crossroads. They're spiritual crossroads, right? Their spiritual courts become these crossroads of the spirits they brought from Africa and that they encountered here, etc. Anything to add, Doc? I'm clearly much more resourced in the afternoon than I am at night when I was trying to do this last night.
I think that we're going to get into the lineage of hoodoo from history to legend to myth. And it's critical. It's crucial that you understand this so that you understand context. What are the beliefs? What are the practices? What are the influences? What are the elements that are in proper context? One of the things that's lacking in a lot of the quote unquote new hoodoo is lack of context. So they have a hodgepodge of hoodoo-esque ideas or ideologies that do not form any cohesive framework because they don't have history. They don't have context. They don't have reference point. You see, they don't know why hoodoo still believes in dominating. Yeah, hoodoo still does love work, even coercive love work. See, and what happens is there's this editing trying to happen to make it more palatable for this modern culture, and that has its place, but not at the expense of the tradition and the lineage as a whole.
And I'll say it goes both ways, right? Because on the one hand, you have the editing to remove that stuff. On the other hand, you have the editing to recontextualize that stuff and say, oh, you got a problem with someone? Just throw them in a jar. Just put them in a mirror box. The idea of justified work, the moral system, I'm going to use this as our segue. The moral system, the ethical system, the proper context of when to do what work. When is it appropriate? What is appropriate and what is not? Not what is possible and what is not, but what is appropriate and what is not. What serves the greater good? What serves our purpose? What feeds the system, the source that feeds us, and what works against it. And so here we move to module 2. I'll let you, let's alternate. We'll run the MC. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Black churchianity, one of the terms that I've coined over the years just as a touchstone for the conversation. In this module 2, Black churchianity, we discuss prayer, we discuss the Bible, we discuss trance and hoodoo theology. I've been saying lately that a lot of Black people who don't like the Bible is because they read it like they're white. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people who don't like the Bible in general because they're reading like they're white people. Okay, they aren't seeing the development of the Black church. In their mind, I didn't say Black Christianity.
Mhm.
Okay. I said Black churchianity. The development of the Black church entwined with hoodoo and understanding that enslaved Africans carried their African spiritual practices, carried their worship technologies, carried their esoteric techniques, and rooted them in the American South. And so there's an emphasis in hoodoo on the Old Testament and the Old Testament scriptures, because they tell the narrative, the history of a people enslaved far from their home, and their liberation and their progressive liberation, even to this day, through prophecy and miracles. We look at the testimonies in the Gospels. All of this needs to be a part of the conversation. And the reason why when we start talking about people asking about prayer, I'm gonna say, I'm turning over to you, Moses, is because most folks who are in hoodoo have vacated the church. And most people who are in the church have vacated every idea of hoodoo, not knowing that they are inseparable.
Mm. It's like a tree that grows two trunks.
Yes.
It's the same.
The root system is the same.
Same tree. It's the exact same tree.
We start talking about praise. We're going to talk about praise, dance, shout, how to enter into these trance states. We'll talk about spiritual possession. All of this figures prominently in a theological and a theurgical and a thaumaturgical framework.
I want to add the other really important part. Just as with module 1, we felt it was very critical to reframe some common misconceptions out there. Mm-hmm. This we had to take head on, because as you said, most people in hoodoo have vacated the church. Most people in the church have vacated hoodoo. There is this idea in the narrative that Christianity, or the Bible specifically, and I applaud Doc for using the term churchianity, because it's really, when we say Christianity in America and what we're talking about in Black churchianity, the basic theology is not the same.
Right.
They're the same characters. There's some of the same stuff, but it is not the same theology. But so when we talk about this idea that the Bible was a tool of control and manipulation, which became very popular, let's be honest, in the 1960s when Islam was entering Black thought very prominently as kind of a counter dialogue. But when we look at this, it's an oversimplified narrative. It's an oversimplified narrative because, as you've pointed out many times, Doc, as we'll look at in the course, in many cases, Christianity came over with the African. Maybe it's a new translation of the book they were getting handed here. Maybe some new looking stuff they got handed here. But that cross, they've been seeing that for a long time. Mm-hmm. And that had already been integrated into the spiritual systems that were brought over. And so the interface here, and it was different in different areas. We'll talk a little bit, I guess, about how it was different in Catholic areas. But the interface here couldn't have happened the way it did, and wouldn't have happened the way it did if there wasn't a linkage, if it was this artificial, oppressive, forced on thing. Now, did that happen in some places? Of course, there was that kind of thing in some on some plantations, in some houses. But the notion that the Black church is anything but a vehicle of liberation and expression needs to be taken head on before we get any deeper in this, because that becomes such a boulevard of power, if you will, that powerful, charismatic individuals, those who carry power, once there is that evolution of the Black church, what had become dispersed in the plantations now started to recollect, and the miracle workers all start to come back together rather than being far flung. And so this is just a very important continuation of the tradition, and more important, the introduction of the theology. that this is not purely an arts and sciences piece, but there is a religious piece to this. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to add. Module 3, Hoodoo Metaphysics.
Go ahead, take it away, Moses. I'll piggyback off of you.
Okay, cool. So speaking of arts and sciences, this is where we do get into that. The doctrine of signatures, the law of similarities. I believe we described it last night as, how do you think like a hoodoo?
Mm-hmm.
What is it when I see this messy desk and I say, oh, I could do this, that, or the other? What is it? How is it that I look at things that make me think of them that way? How are things connected? How are the parts of a person connected to the whole of a person? And how do those connections last across time and across space? How do we pick what root to work with for a job? Given we know what we're going to use a high John root. And we got our bag of high John roots and we pull them out on the table. How do we pick which one we're working with? How do we pick which is the right one for a person? What are we looking for? How are we comparing a root how are we making an apples to apples comparison between a root and a person? What is it in this sort of metaphorical logic, in this poetic viewing of reality that allows us to, and the crazy thing is why we need to teach it is that, as we said, it's the same, right? You could show me and Doc a bunch of things that look like random things, and we'll start connecting those things in basically the same way, because there's a way of thinking, it's a way of seeing. I chose the red and black color scheme on this one because I always like to think about that story, that when ethnographers kind of went out and they encountered regions where they didn't have complex color systems and the people only had the colors red and black, and they showed them a rainbow and asked how many colors they were, they said 2. Because how you know things frames how you see the world, how you experience reality, what is actually before you to work with. And this is where we need to initiate you into that sort of thinking and establish those paradigms, right? The chains of cause and effect need to be looked at a certain way, because otherwise, well, how do you choose? Well, why would you even burn a candle? How's that working? What does burning a candle on someone's picture do? Why does it do that? If you can't answer it, you certainly can't do it right if you don't know what you're trying to do. That's why we need module 3.
I want to jump into some of the questions here because I don't want people to. One of the things that Vigil Woman asks is, I just had a question. I'm pulling from memory, but about what is the tuition? What is the weekly time commitment?
So tuition is for the entire course, $1,111. We can break that up into weekly payments from the time you start till the course is done. So if you start now, there's more weeks till the course is done. If you wait till the cutoff is when the course starts. You cannot join late. So you have between now and January 6th to get in and break it up over weekly payments. Obviously, the more payments that you make, the less each payment is. So there's that. The other thing in terms of tuition that we just announced last night, and we're still setting up the back end, it will be live.
But before we get to that, we have to talk about scholarships.
Sure. Well, are we still accepting scholarships? Let's lay that out right here. Are we accepting scholarships? Where are we at with that? Because my 20 scholarships are locked in. The Endeavor scholarships, all those emails and first tuition emails are going out this week. I believe tonight, actually.
I'll say this. If you're Black, hit me up. Okay. I put my link in here. Send me an interest. I know I had cut it off 10 days ago. We're going to open it back up for a short amount of time. Get in so you can apply for a scholarship.
Don't let the financial reasons be the reason you don't do it. That's not a good reason. We'll figure it out one way or the other. Work, trade, payment plan, scholarship. Just don't let that be the reason. And if there's another reason, let us know what it is.
Okay, so definitely do that. As for the birthright scholarship, if you are Black, you're the descendants of enslaved Africans in America. Now, if you know, are Brazilian or something like that, or Jamaican or Ghanaian, then you won't necessarily meet that qualification. Still apply though, but you won't meet that necessary qualification. But if you are the descendant of enslaved Africans in America, please reach out to me because this is your birthright. Okay. And I am not going to stand idly by while the other culture vultures and poachers want to sell at exorbitant rates our tradition back to us, all the while fleecing us, then trying to cut the head of us from the history of the conversation at the same time.
Selling the not even the real tradition, not even anything that matters, selling. And you know, that's why we had a discussion last week that we're gonna basically, originally we had 20 spots for each scholarship, and we are keeping that with the Endeavor scholarship. My scholarship is capped. For the birthright, what I said to Doc is I'm not going to tell person number 21 they don't get their birthright.
Right.
And so that's open.
But you need to get in ASAP because we have a time constraint.
Yeah, it's not a limited amount of people, but there's definitely, we got to start. We need to know who's in the program. We got to get things going. So we
got budgets we got to get to. We have elders we need to so there's a lot we have going on. So, you know, get in. That being said, so we have our tuition as far as payment plans are concerned. We have our scholarships, and then also you want to introduce.
So as of last night, we're introducing, there's one thing you really got to learn. You know, you really need the Hoodoo history class. You feel like that's the missing piece for you, or the Hoodoo metaphysics, or whatever. You will be able to take the courses like a la carte. You know, a single class is $100. You get the whole 3-hour course. So people asked about time commitment, so I might as well talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 3-hour courses every week, plus an additional guest speaker. You do not have to attend live. There's no homework. There's no exams. You get a certificate of completion at the end, but no credentials because we're not giving you any exams. Now, when we come back and do Hoodoo Academy 2 next year, there are exams for that. You earn credentials with that, but that's further out. For now, this is just saying you've been here, you've done this, you were there. We know that you were there for this. And so with that said, your commitment is very minimal.
How much is the day passes?
The day pass is $100 a day. So that's $100 for any of those 3-hour webinars. You will have access to the video of it streaming 24/7 forever. And the audio, I believe we can let you download. We're still working out the details on if we can release that. Now, that said, with all this stuff, especially with our guest speakers, there's some stuff that we felt the only way to make the spiritual obligations meet with the reality of the fact that we're doing this over the internet is to have some non-disclosure agreements in place that you will have to sign. So, which are both, you know, legally and spiritually enforced. So if you, if you download the audio recording of something that's for you to listen to, that's your lesson, you know, you are entitled to that. But we ask you please not to share it with anyone. Don't even play it with someone else in the room. It's inappropriate. It's highly inappropriate. And
I'm seeing some of them message me now. Y'all need to make sure you submit an interest letter, okay, a letter of interest for the scholarship, and then, you know, we'll get you on the schedule, send you an application you can fill out, we'll get you your interview. Now that we're actually pulling out just a few minutes here, I want to jump on this. We can get back into our curriculum discussion, but this is very critical. I answer this. Zen Golden Child 777 says, is it fair to say that you will be on a level of practitioner at the end of the course?
Can I take a shot at that first?
Yes, please.
You will absolutely be on the level of a personal practitioner. Yes. Begin embarking on your personal practice. I was just thinking as I was cleaning out the temple, I was doing a lot of retrospection. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's this whole Saturn thing. But as I was cleaning out the temple and moving things on the altars and, associating memories as I touch them, reflecting back on all the lessons I've learned in personal practice and how glad I was I learned that doing work for myself instead of trying to do that for a client, because that would have been embarrassing and possibly like irresponsible. So yes, you will be a personal practitioner, absolutely, for yourself, for your family, for your close loved ones. Yes. Are you ready to hang up your shingle and go pro? Definitely not. Definitely not.
Good and good.
Do you feel it's a comprehensive answer, Doc?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're going to have other levels, all right, of Hoodoo Academy. I just want to say this. The 16 plus one bonus. I'm not giving off for that bonus. It's 16 plus a bonus. Modules that we have are all at level 1. Right. These are to be introductory modules for you. Okay. But there'll be far more of a comprehensive introduction you've ever had.
Oh, I mean,
unless you were born in this.
Yeah, there is no comprehensive introduction out there. That's that I've ever found. If I'm wrong, show me. Shall we go back to the curriculum?
Yeah.
Some questions? Yeah. Okay. Let me pop the screen share up again. There we go. Okay.
If you guys have any questions, again, drop your Hoodoo questions. We have not forgotten them.
This is you. I did the last one. It's your turn.
Okay. So module number 4, Spiritology and Spiritism. This is about the why of spirit work. We're going to look at the distinction, the differences, the comparisons, the contrast of spirit and spirits. Everybody's saying, well, spirit told me, and that kind of thing. Or I felt it in my spirit. Well, what is that? Why is that? Okay. It's critical that you understand, not just based upon nuance in terminology or vernacular rather, but the difference between soul and spirit, for example. All right. They're not interchangeable. They're not buzzwords to throw out for energy. Okay. They're very distinct phrases that demark different things. So we're going to look at the dynamics of working with spirits in a Hoodoo framework. We're going to look deeper at trance, possession. We're going to look at the interactions between the material, the personal, the spiritual world. We'll give you some tips and techniques, some strategies to detect spirits, to manage spirits, to train and trap spirits. We'll, unpack the spiritual court. We'll talk about your spiritual frame, how to attend to, how to relate to your spirits. And of course, we're going to talk about Hoodoo spirits. Because, I get this question a lot from people who are from different ATRs, which are, is there, Hoodoo spirits, right? Like you have the Loa, you have the Orisha, whatever. Well, absolutely there are. Moses, we'll talk about Moses. We'll talk about Hydra the Conqueror, of course. We'll talk about Burr Rabbit, of course. John Henry, and so on and many, many others. So we'll give you, can I say, the Hoodoo pantheon, okay, or the Hoodoo catalog of spirits here, and the 4 pillars of the work, the 4 elements of Hoodoo: God, the devil, the dead, and you.
I think that's comprehensive. The only thing that I would add as a point of clarification is this is not the class on the module on conjuring spirits. That's actually the bonus module at the end.
Right.
This is just understanding yourself as a spiritual being, how you fit in a spiritual universe, how, again, spirit works, what that all is, because we're going to use that as the framework when we move on to the material world, right? Because the reason that we can see a root being like a person is I'm not looking at a root and a person. I'm looking at 2 spirits. That's the, hint. That's the spoiler alert. That's the apples to apples comparison. You look at the spirit of that root and the spirit of that person. If those things look the same, then they fit, right? And so that's what we're going to get into. Module 5, ancestor veneration. It's the root of the tradition. You got nothing. You have no power on your own. You have no merit on your own for any spirit to want to help you. as I like to say, we seldom have the chance to do anything great in our time. We live in a very comfortable, easy time. Thanks to God for that, but we don't really get to pursue greatness. Not in the way our ancestors did, walking across mountains and surviving impossible odds and fleeing northward across an entire continent and things of this nature. These heroic feats, true heroism, is something we seldom get a chance to even try in our lives, but it lives in us from our ancestors. And when we go far enough back, we go to our ancestors who, hunted giant beasts by themselves and discovered fire and founded language and things of this nature, right? So all those great potentials, like how much is there left for us to discover? Not as much as there was for our great ancestors who did all that discovery. And that all rests in us. We are literally the ongoing force, the ongoing power that was them. We can't approach this work without that. If you're just trying to handle a bunch of roots and bones and, wave your hands over them and say some Bible stuff, you don't have the qualifications. You don't have the access to do that. Your ancestors are the way you are able to. And we have to go through that door in order to get to any of that stuff. Doctor.
Let me just say it this way. When we look at death and ancestral reincarnation, again, in the Hoodoo framework, is open. In the spiritological framework, what is the responsibility that we have as the living with the ancestral work, ancestral connection? In module 5, we'll talk about how to maintain an ancestral altar. We'll talk about the care and the feeding of the ancestors. We'll talk about receiving, asking for, rejecting ancestral inspiration, because not every ancestral inspiration is the one you want to be receiving. Even how do we fulfill our ancestral obligations? What does ancestral elevation really look like? So if you have any other questions, module 5 we need to look into.
Shall we continue then onward to module 6?
Yeah.
Principles of Ritual, Dr. Cosmic.
Principles of ritual. One of the interesting things about Hoodoo is it is a ritual-centric practice, right? It's not, I get this all the time. We kind of saw this a little bit in the Skeleton Key, where, well, if I don't believe it, don't work. Okay. The old timers used to tell us, baby, the root gonna do what the root gonna do. And that's the power of ritual, right? It's beyond just pure visualization, or I hear this all the time too, especially in New Hoodoo, was only the intent that matters.
Right. Oh, I didn't have the right thing. So
right.
I just used this, but I put the right intent.
What we're talking about here is you can't talk about spirituality without talking about rituality.
Wow. Rewind that again for people, because if they didn't write it down, they missed it.
I said you can't talk about spirituality without rituality. So we're talking about the manipulation of physical objects in a ritual setting. So we're going to talk about working altars. We'll talk about the tools of ritual work. We'll talk about how to, what's your checklist for a good ritual, right? What is the bread and the butter, the framework, the building blocks of good ritual? Design, the essential phases of ritual, the parts of ritual. We look at divination. We look at altar work, floor work, working in the field. What do we do with the ritual matures? What do we do? A ritual remains. All of this needs to be dealt with, and we're going to do that. We're going to introduce these concepts to you in module 6.
I want to just add, it's not, ritual is one of those things where you the checklist and that kind of approach, as you're getting used to it, is really helpful. Once you have the logic of it, you don't even have to think about it. But let me say this: if you're standing at an altar that you set up for some spirit, and you have lit your candles and you've made your request and it didn't come through, you left your offerings out, all that, but you didn't call the spirit and you didn't ask to speak to them and you didn't see if they were willing to hear your request, don't be surprised when the work doesn't work. There are phases to the interaction, and as you get used to them, it happened organically. It's almost like dating. It's almost like dating. When I first started dating, Doc, you're way cooler than me, so maybe this isn't true for you. When I first started dating, I was looking for a recipe, or like, how do I lay down game? Like, how does this work? What do you say? And then what do they do? And then what do you do? And naturally, at this point, it becomes very organic. But it can help in the beginning to have someone kind of put you on a few things. So that's what we'll be doing.
My dating life is okay. Anyway, back to module 6.
7 conjuring plants. I got to say, this is where most talk of hoodoo begins.
Mm-hmm.
You see, we put in 6 modules, 18 hours plus the enrichment education, over 20 hours of education before you think about a plan. When you're learning, the way we grow up in traditions, we only start to pick this technical specifics up later. What we get steeped into us through osmosis, through interacting in our world, is how the world works, how to think about it, and how to think about our place in the world. That's default by the time we're, my kids' ages, young kids. Just yesterday, she started coming down and saying, Dad, what's devil's shoestring? And I say, oh, people say it ties up the devil, like St. Michael, But that's because she knows St. Michael ties up the devil. She knows the significance of that. She knows the significance of that in our theology. She knows the significance of that in our household. Otherwise, what's the point of telling her what the root does? And so that's why those first 6 modules, that's why this comes 7th. And that's what you're missing, basically, and why it cannot work in any other setting. In any other setting where you're learning the plants first, you're not learning hoodoo. All right, let me bring it to go. So with all that as an intro, this is now how we work with the spirit of the plant, how we conjure the spirit of the plant, how we awaken the plant, the preferences of different plants. How do we feed the plants? How do we reward the plants? How do we establish our authority over the plants? How do we make them work for us? How do we get them to do the work we want and not the work they want to do? How do we do all of that? That's what we need to. And yes, are we going to cover, your essential hoodoo plants? Yeah, your high John, your low John, your Dixie John. Yes, you'll learn all that stuff. We would be remiss not to. We have to. But what we're also going to cover, what you're not going to get anywhere else, is how to harvest the plant, how to dry the plant, how to keep the plant, how to prepare the plant. This is unlike, you may have taken a bunch of herbology courses. You may have taken a bunch of even hoodoo root working courses. This is not going to be like any of those. I can absolutely promise you that. Doctor. I know you have company in the home now, so it's a lot going on.
You hear that rattling around?
Well, unless you got the mice too.
No, I don't have mice, no, but it's a good rattling around. So I'm enjoying that sound. Y'all just have to put up with it. That's fine. But I'm in it's music to my ears. But what this is about is, so module 7, 8, and 9, okay, form the elements of spiritual medicine. Okay. Modules 10 and on are the different ways that is deployed and used, the forms that medicine will take. But these are the basic elements. So how do you select plants? How do you prepare plants? How do you awaken or quicken them? How do you conjure them? From the aspect of winning favor with the spirits of the plants. And also, what are the best practices when working with roots and plants? Notice that, most folks know that there's 6 parts of every plant. And if you don't know these 4, then you definitely need to be in this class.
And if you don't know the essential differences between a plant's root and its flower.
And not just physical differences, but also metaphysical differences. Yes and yes. Let's jump into this question here.
Yeah.
Which was from Tanya Dent. What prayer or chant do you use while prepping railroad spikes for the corner of your house?
I left my book in the temple. Let me get the one that has my marks in it. Let me pull up another book of Psalms. I'm using a Psalm, obviously. Let me pull up another Bible while you answer that one. Where's my blue Bible?
So what I look at is, we're talking about the pillars of the earth in the scriptures. That's one thing I look at. The other thing I look at, depending upon how you prepared the railroad spikes, one of my favorite is that God will be a wall of fire round about her and glory in the midst of her. Zechariah chapter 2, verse 5. Okay. And obviously Psalms 91 is a good one. Okay. Where it discusses hedges, barriers, boundaries, standards. I think it's Isaiah chapter 60 that says, and the enemy shall come in like a flood, but the Spirit of God will lift up a standard against him.
Right. Here we go. Psalm 75. The whole thing, but verse 4, earth and its dwellers would melt had I not set fast its pillars, Selah. That one, and that whole one, because then it gets into God is the judge, is he who brings down and lifts up. It's an all-inclusive. It does the usual Psalm all-inclusive, good for me, bad for them thing. But it includes the setting of the pillars and in a sustainable way that moves, that is unmovable.
And by the way, we actually have a module dedicated just to scripture. We'll get into that, a little bit later on.
We're close, but I mean, there's a verse for this or a prayer for that. We have an entire 3 hours of that. I would say with everything, there's, and this is where I think a lot of the lists of verses that we come across kind of come up short. You might get a list of verses for money or prosperity, let's say. But not every one of those verses is appropriate for every situation. In fact, more than likely than not, only one of those verses is appropriate for any given situation. And so that's where developing this as a fuller understanding is important. We'll get there when we continue. Do we have more question right now, or we want to go back to the
well, we have another similar question,
okay,
which is, what verse can I use over candle work to get someone to make sound and wise decisions with discernment?
This one I have. This one I have. This one I have. If we're just doing Psalms, I got you. Give me a sec. I used to know all this stuff off the top of my head, and now I have to know, like, you know, my kids' names and stuff. Discernment. What kind of situation? If they could give us a little more information, what do they have to judge? Is it a professional situation? Is it the counsel of other people, etc.? I would ask for a little more information on that.
Okay, that was Sonia G.
Okay.
Well, while they're updating us on that,
yes,
we've got module 8.
Let's bring it back up. Yeah. Share screen. Let me try. There we go. Coming around. So we just did plants, and now, Doctor, animals.
So when we're talking about animal medicine, understand that animal medicine is a vital aspect of African spiritual traditions, from spiritual healing to the creation of charms to, you know, working magic. Because, and this goes back to what we talked about before with hoodoo metaphysics, the law of correspondence, the doctrine of signatures. All right. Now, as it expresses itself in animals, because different species of animals have their own traits, their own characteristics, their own virtues, their own endowments, their own powers, their own gifts, skills, abilities, and resources, their own assets that have been built into them by the architect of the universe. So, how do we access that animal nature to inject that powerful energy into our workings? So we're going to talk about raising, commanding the spirit of that animal, and also how to operate, how to formulate medicines with that animal material. Even from the extent of even what parts of the animal. You know, me and Moses talking about this, thing might have been 2 days ago, about parts of the animal whose virtues change depending upon what material state it's in.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we just said there's 6 parts of the plant, and if you don't know those, you're not ready to work plants. There's way more than 6 parts of an animal.
Yeah.
You know, that's the complexity of an animal working and why you might not get the result you wanted or are looking for. Well, I'll say this, and this is a classic one for me, because, you know, I do a lot of the coyote work, and people will often acquire a coyote tooth or a claw from me. And a lot of people, claws are a little less expensive. So a lot of people will opt for a claw, say, is it good enough? It's about the same. I say it is about the same in terms of its effectiveness. But the effect that it has is different. Because if you are trying to talk your way out of a situation, you need what's in the animal's mouth, not what's in its hand. And so these are some of the nuances that we can get into, and how we can get into formulation and things of that nature, and how the state that the animal's in changes. You know, the mice that end up in my mouse traps are going to be different than you know, some mouse bones that you just find somewhere, or mouse bones you may have pulled out of an owl pellet or something. Chapter 9, module 9, excuse me. I've done that a bunch. Scriptural conjure. This is exactly it, right? You need verses. We got verses. Verses on verses.
Oh, yeah.
Verses. What, you know.
Adi. Let me stop.
Honestly, we could probably just do 3 hours of not even reading the verses, of just saying, grab your pen, start.
Right. Book chapter verse. Book chapter verse. Book chapter verse. Yeah.
That one, really, if you just do that and you have a Bible, you're a practitioner. There you go. You're ready to start practice. And to answer the question that the person had before, are you a practitioner in the sense that you are practicing, that you are able to maintain a spiritual practice, which you will practice at and get better at over time? 100%. Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. I don't know what I can say about it other than we're going to give you the verses. This one will not be usually when every single Monday night we're there for 4 to 6 hours talking about biblical conjure. That's not this. That's not this. This is this verse for this verse for that, this verse for this, and a catalog of verses. One of the Endeavor scholars put in his answer, because I'd asked, why are you interested in hoodoo? When did you become interested in hoodoo? Why are you here? He said, when I was in jail. He's already been a practitioner in ATRs and stuff. He said, I was in jail and I didn't have anything. But I get my hands on a Bible 24 hours a day. And he said, all of a sudden, my perspective shifted on what is it like to have to work. I say all the time how ceremonial magic is the magic of white privilege. Not only are you commanding, but you've got your gold crown and you've got, all your stuff.
Your iron sash.
You know what I mean?
Lion sash.
The working with what you got to get power in a situation where you got none, that's at the essence of hoodoo. And that's why scriptural conjure, to me, is irreplaceable. Any place you go, at least in the United States, you can get a Bible. Hotel room, jail, probably the post office. I can't imagine any city in this country that doesn't have a Bible.
And the more south you are, the more readily available they are.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's even out here, there's towns that literally the town is 6 buildings on a little strip, population 25 people or something like that. They don't have a library necessarily, but I guarantee you there's a Bible in that town. So scriptural conjure, that we've never offered anything like that. So now we've moved through 7, 8, 9, right? To get you, let's do a quick recap because we've kind of broken it up. So we are laying the groundwork, giving you your roots here, developing your view. Then we're bringing you giving you, now you're above ground. Now you're growing your trunk, your branches, kind of understanding how we interact with the physical materials and how we empower them. And now we're moving into the making of the spiritual medicines from those things, bringing them together more. Dr. Cosmic, Module 10.
So Module 10, as I said before, Modules 9, 8, and 7 dealt with spiritual medicines. All right. Now we're getting into how do we formulate those spiritual medicines, right? How do we begin to mix and match and combine them in a structured format? All right. This is the alchemical process now we're beginning to peek into. So when we talk about powders, one of the most common ways that spiritual medicines show up is in powders. Now I consider myself kind of a powder man. I love making me a powder, more than an oil any day. I'm just getting into oils. What I can tell you is this. Last year, went to a Botanica, spent $273.86. Literally, the receipt was written on a brown paper bag. The bag myself was actually in fact. And I thought I had found this treasure trove.
They even said legitimate esoteric powders. So what a find, man.
A treasure trove.
He put it down in the back and everything. Doc said, do you have powders? He said, oh, powders? He had a whole file he pulled out of the back.
He had a 3-ring binder of a catalog.
But it wasn't out there. You had to ask for it. And then, that was exciting.
And then got to the table to unearth my great find.
So excited. You were so excited to open those things.
I couldn't wait. I was clawing my way into this bag. Moses couldn't cut down the stairs fast enough. I said, you got to be sitting here. I want you to see.
Yeah, exactly. You need to be sitting there.
And there were various grades, various textures of cornstarch.
You opened the first one. It was kind of blue.
And also, this would be a blip. This got to be a blip. They all aren't like this.
It's like, this one's like corn.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
So what you missed? So he's sitting there in this store for like an hour, flipping through. It's like a baseball card binder. Like, ooh, I need this one, and I need 3 of these. And hold on, they have that one? Okay, if they have that one and this one, then I need both of those.
In fact, here are some of the very same right here. And I saved them only as a reminder of a day of infamy. But these powders, so-called, and they were all, every single, man, listen, I literally, this was enough cornstarch for Thanksgiving turkey. This is literally Thanksgiving right here. Pay me now powder, cornstarch. Tapaboca shut up powder, cornstarch.
Now hold up. They do have some essential oils or something in there, right? They have a smell.
No, I think what that is just that the smell of that botanica from various levels of exposure to it as it mixed with the sunlight hitting to create different shades of color yeah.
So they all smell identical, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
At this point, if they ever smell different, that's long gone.
Rompe Camino. You would think would actually have Rompe Camino powder. No, it's all. So my point in saying all that is this. That infuriated me on a level that burned to the lowest hell for me for so many different reasons. And I think it didn't take maybe a month until I said, you know what? Fuck them. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We'll do it ourselves.
3 weeks later, Doc called me and said, how are they going to have tame lamb powder without any lamb in it?
And to this day, I've got some, where is it? Right here. Okay. Cordero Manso with actual lamb in it. Whole lamb, in fact. Not cornstarch. Okay. There's a reason why Moses has actual scorpions in his brutal attraction medicine. Okay. This stands as a showcase against this crap.
I'll go even further and say, there's a reason we made you learn everything you learned before you got to module 10, because I didn't just throw some scorpions in a grinder. When you have established the relationship with the animal, that comes first. Otherwise, it's just may as well be cornstarch. So the Spiritual Powders Workshop goes into all that. It goes into the tools we use. It goes into the techniques we use. It's a lot more than throw some shit in a coffee grinder, I'll tell you that. The approaches we're taking when we formulate, in the picture there, you can see there's like hair mixed into it. That's a mixed whole animal limb. Actually multiple animal legs in that formula.
Oh, I forgot. That's
along with herbs and things like that.
Yeah, give me a second.
There's a lot to think about when you're doing this from a technical standpoint. The order you grind things in, how do you process batches and things like that. So there's a lot to think about in those regards, but there's also a lot in the work. There's a reason there's not a picture of a grinder in the Spiritual Powders picture. The bringing together of these different elements to work as a system. I'll say even further, it's like when you think of medicine, you don't want the body to reject, in Western medicine, you don't want the body to reject a transplant or something like that. So you're transplanting different plants and animals together. And so you don't want them to reject each other. You have to make that integrate, and you have to have them steer towards a purpose. That's what we're going to cover in Module 10. I'll move on with Module 11. Now, I don't have the chat. Oh, Doc's back. Excellent. Excellent.
What these powders look like, what we're going to be doing with them is, as Moses said, the ins and outs of making good powders, a powerful medicine. Notice that, we're going to talk about the three different categories, the categorizations of medicine. I talk about this a lot on my Instagram, a black medicine versus a white medicine versus a red medicine, and what that looks like, okay? Why they are called that, how to differentiate one from the other, okay? And we'll give you a couple of tricks to really jazz your medicines up in their powder form, okay? What you want to say about 11?
Well, the only things I want to add about 10 that I forgot to say while you were gone, because I didn't look at the write-up, and then I know you were looking at the write-up, so I had a sudden awareness of what I was leaving out from there. Working with the powders and how to deploy them, how to lay with powders, how to use a powder to make an oil, how to use a powder to load a candle. A powder is like a basic.
Probably one of the most versatile forms of medicine.
Load a statue, dust your hands, blow it in someone's face, put it in someone's food, put it in their foot tracks, put it in a candle. But there's nothing you can't do with a powder.
With a powder, very true.
I've been playing around mixing powder with paint and painting things with powder.
I just made soap.
Soap.
I put my mastery powder in soap.
I like that, man. That's cool. And you can make bar soap, or you can make liquid soap. There's just so much you can do from the powder.
And here's what I want to say. Module 10 also underlies some of the techniques for the covert nature of conjure. Because of the high versatility of powders, right?
And how do you, if I put a bone and a bunch of plants on your front porch, you're gonna know exactly what that is. But they're innocuous. They look like nothing. They look like nothing specific, and that gives them a whole lot of potential. Sorry, Doc, I had to cover that.
No, you're good. So moving on.
Should we go to 11? Let's go to 11.
Yeah.
All right. Module 11, spiritual baths, teas, and washes. I forget who started powders. So you want to do this? Or you want me to do it?
I started powders, but we'll go into here's the thing. We're moving from our dry medicines into our wet medicines now in module 11. Okay. Baths, teas, washes, of course, head washings. Hey, I may give you a little something on foot washing.
Well, old school. I didn't put it in the write-up because I didn't want to presume it. But that now I'm excited.
Because we can't talk about Hoodoo history and Black Christianity and then come to module 11, I'll talk about foot washing. That would be a disservice to the conversation. But we know that water is psychic. We know water is magnetic. We know water has a level of consciousness to it. Okay. How do we then incorporate our working into that framework? Because now you're working with a whole other spirit by itself, right? Water has a nature. Water has a disposition. From hot water to cold, there's a different energy between a hot bath and a cold bath, a sweet bath and a bitter bath, using elemental waters. What is air water? What is fire water? What is earth water? Spring water, rainwater, etc. All of these have their own nuances, their own personalities, and even their own virtues to them. So how do you know how to maximize your bath? Just by literally what base you put into it. Never mind talking about holy waters, plural.
Saw that in the movie last night, right? She said, "You have a bottle of water that hasn't been through a pipe."
Right, virgin water. And he said
rainwater or stream water.
And notice he said that he was like, "Couldn't you just give her any kind of water?"
Right. The guy who was with him said, "Couldn't you give her any water?" Yeah.
Right. He said she would know. And could it be that your bath, you have to keep doing that same bath over and over and over and over and over? Mm-hmm. Maybe the herbs and everything is good, but the kind of water you're using is not right. Mm-hmm. Or the way you prepare it. Mm-hmm. When I did my in-person apprenticeship, one of the things that my students said to me was, when we talked about baths, that was the life changer starter for him. He said, because the way that he conceptualized baths being made out of a book, for to see me do it, were worlds of difference. Mm-hmm. Were worlds of difference. He said, there is no way I could have produced what you just did from what I read in the book. There's no way I would have put that together to produce this.
You know, I got to say this in general regarding books on Hoodoo. To technical writing is a skill because it requires great specificity. Otherwise, it leaves things open to interpretation. People who write books on Hoodoo usually don't have a background in technical writing. And they're written in such a way that you can read it and maybe exactly what they meant is not specifically what's on the page. And then even what's on the page isn't exactly what you get in your mind. So that double disconnect, you can lose really the whole thing. And you end up just having sort of a shadow of the work.
Because you can't write a manual on how to fuck.
As we like to say, you can't write a manual on how to fuck. I mean, you can. Kama Sutra is a great book. But I'll tell you, I read the Kama Sutra for the first time when I was 11 years old. If I did it only how I thought it was supposed to come from the book, it would have been a mess. There's a learning curve to applying what I read in the book, I'll say.
Yes and yes. So let me just check the chat here. Anybody have any questions for us here? Let me go way back, make sure I didn't miss anything. Someone asked about the third temple and let me go back to follow up with Sonia. The candle work. Okay. Yes. So Sonia responded by saying,
right?
What's that?
We want someone to have wisdom and clear judgment.
Discernment, right. She said, for someone to make positive and healthy decisions for their life, someone who tends to make constant bad decisions.
I really wish I had my book of Psalms with me, because then this is the Robert Alter one, so the words aren't even the same. It's not like I recognize the phrases.
So what I like to use is, you can take your pick of the book of Proverbs. That's a good one to chew on. The other one I would say is what, First Chronicles, chapter 3. All right, the Prayer of Solomon. The Prayer of Solomon. I think it's First Chronicles. Excuse me, Second Chronicles, my apologies. Second Chronicles, chapter 3. Right. And I'm way off. Let me get myself together. Second Chronicles, chapter 1. I'm sorry. Second Chronicles, chapter 1. My mind's going everywhere. Second Chronicles, chapter 1, verses 7 through 12. First Chronicles.
I'm gonna do this easier.
Second Chronicles. I'm just all over the place. My goodness. Those of you who are in the chat, let us know what platform you are viewing us on. If everything is good and clear, how are you liking the lineup so far? Give us some feedback. It's a little bit quiet in the chat. I'm hoping it's because y'all are taking notes and making arrangements. I'm hoping that's what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on.
Let me go ahead and put Moses' link back in here again because I kind of got lost.
Do you know what we haven't told them? Go to http hoodoo.academy. We haven't told them how to go. How to sign up. We've done a poor job with that.
I'll put in the chat here.
Yeah, it's just you can put the www. You don't even have to though. It's just hoodoo.academy. So there's nothing to remember.
Hoodoo.academy. Everything you need to know is right there. If you're wanting to get a consideration for scholarship, please submit an interest letter as soon as possible. If you are a Black descendant of enslaved Africans in America.
I found my Psalms 49 is the one I was looking for.
Okay.
For your situation. Psalms 49 has, my mouth shall speak of wisdom, and the meditation of my heart shall be of understanding. I will incline mine ear to a parable. I will open my dark saying upon the harp. The foundation of being receptive to divine guidance in decision making. It's, from what I heard you say, was that has a habit of making poor decisions, and so you kind of gotta take it a little bit to a higher authority when it comes to decision making, I guess you could say.
So here's the thing. Actually, I'm way over my time.
We out of time?
I've got clients I gotta get to. I actually had to move one around, and one's showing up in 10 minutes.
Should we bang through the rest of these real quick?
Yes, let's zoom through these.
Let's do it. Okay. So that's baths. After baths, we move through water. We get into oils, colognes, things you're going to wear, different methods of extraction, what we're doing in the Hoodoo laboratory, etc., 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 etc. We're going to be posting the descriptions for this as well. Writs, name papers, petitions, seals, how we're working with the written language. What does it mean to form letters? What does it mean to fold papers? What does it mean to use different types of paper? A new pen versus an old pen. What does it mean to break a pen after you use it in the work? What does it mean to throw it in the graveyard? All these things. The power of seals, where you can include seals being so versatile. All this stuff's going to come up, building on what we talked about in scripture, building on everything we've talked about with spiritual medicine. You can now use all this to juice up your spiritual medicines. And you can use it in candles and lamps, which is why we sequenced it like this. You get into candles and lamps. Obviously, all your basic types of lamps, your bowl lamp, your traditional glass hurricane lamp, your bridge lamp, your floating wick lamp, all those types of lamps, how to construct them, how to operate them, how you can put more power into them. As we were saying yesterday, people don't even often think to write around the inside of your bowl.
Spirit lamps.
That's the basic of it. So talking about that, then we get into candles. Obviously, your basic candles, your chime candles and your 7-day candles. Also your figural candles, and how to use your figural candles like a figural candle, not like a candle. And then how to use your regular candles like a figural candle, not like a candle. We're going to talk about using the candles as effigies, as pointers and containers for spirit, in the same as the lamp. So using these things in a hoodoo sense, not just burning to make wax melt that you can post wax reports of. Module 15. I'm sorry, Doc, did I make you smile? I apologize.
Yes.
Module 15, personal concerns. We've covered a lot of ground here. We have intentionally omitted the humans. You needed enough responsibility to be able to handle this, and also the context to be able to look at this in, I feel like they don't just start talking about penises on the first day of medical school, or everyone would just start laughing. So with personal concerns, we got to build a little bit of professional framework before we get into it, because this is, I find a lot of people who look at hoodoo from the outside, or back when we were at the kind of eclectic stage where people were dabbling and wanting to add hoodoo to their repertoire. The personal concerns was a dividing line. Animals and the personal concerns for a lot of people was like this big taboo that they couldn't negotiate. And it's essential, because if you don't, and hopefully by the time we get to module 15, you understand why. We will talk about how to, what the kind of virtues of the different personal concerns, what's the difference between someone's hair and their sweat and their semen and their voice and their spit, and the different types of sweat that they might have. What types of workings do you want to use those for? We use personal concerns kind of in two ways too. One is to target a person or to get access to them. The other is to sort of inoculate a formula to program it for them, to customize it for them, to bind it to them, an amulet too, anything, a spirit that's working for them, etc. So how does this work? We've kind of covered by now. How to do it is what we're getting into now. And then how do you collect personal concerns? Things of this nature. Moving on, we have one more module and then a bonus. See what I did there, Doc? That was for you. Module 16, Spirit of the Place, Jesus Loci, the Railroad, the Graveyard, the Crossroads, and Beyond. Frankly, I called it that because if we listed them all, it would take up half the image, and it would just be a very long title. But we're going to be looking at, we now have a good idea of spirit. We have a good idea of how spirit is composed in people, but we're going to talk about how spirit is composed in place, how spirits collect at places, and how we can collect those spirits, protocols, best practices, how to interact with the spirits of different places, what types of offerings they like. I've just been blasting through this, Doc. Hey, you jump in anytime here. No, keep it going. Okay. How do you go to the graveyard? How do you go to the railroad? Where should you be careful? What should you bring with you? What precautions must you take? What sorts of things would you go there for? Etc. And then bonus, module 17, Conjuration of Spirits. We kind of said that module 17 was like the beginning of number. It's like 1.5 almost, in terms of we're moving from fundamental principles now to how to put these things together, how to operate. Conjuration of Spirits is a bit more of like, you could have a personal practice your whole life and never need to conjure a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say it like that. You could have a personal practice your whole life and never need to conjure a spirit, manage spirits, etc. If you are moving to a, we'll call it a lifestyle practitioner, where like this is not just part of your life, but is your life, or a professional, you're going to get pretty tired pretty quick if you can't conjure with spirits. So that's what we'll cover. And you don't get me wrong, when we're talking about conjuring plants, conjuring animals, you are conjuring with spirits, right? But this is a little bit more of how do you strike the best negotiations with them? What are precautions you should take? This is a little more advanced. This is kind of like a 200 level course. And with that said, Doc, anything in the chat before we go? I know you got to jump for a client.
If you can. What's that, Moses?
Anything in the chat before we go?
Nope. Chat's good.
All right, everybody. Well, I know Doc has to go. It's always a pleasure to join you for these, Doc. Keep the questions coming and keep the learning coming. Come check us out at Hoodoo Academy. Again, that's at http://hoodoo.academy. If you have any questions about payment plans or anything like that, you can email me at hoodoomoses@gmail.com, or you can email Doc. Contact us through our usual channels. But do it now. If you're thinking like, oh, well, I'm going to wait till after Christmas and get it going because there's a week, don't, because we will be in motion by then. It really, like 2 weeks max, we need to have this thing shut down in terms of registration so we can be getting everyone their materials and preparing everything, etc. Doc, anything to add on our closing salutations?
You guys make sure that you check us out for Friday. We'll be having our prophetic demonstration, our Prophecy 360 House of Zion host every Friday. So you can register for that in the link in my bio. Hold all of you in the light of God that never fails. We look forward to seeing you. Okay. Even on Monday for Sacred Scripture Circle, and again on Wednesday for our movie night.
It's a good time. Sacred Scripture Circle. Oh, go back and watch last week's on my Instagram bio at Hoodoo Moses on Instagram. We'll see you guys soon.